Welcome to Crime Scene X. Today's video will cover 3 true horror stories. If you enjoy, leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe for more stories. Sit back and enjoy the video. I hadn't been back to my hometown in over a decade. The invitation to the high school reunion arrived unexpectedly, a glossy reminder of a past I'd tried to forget. Reluctantly, I decided to go, driven by a morbid curiosity to see how everyone had changed. The reunion was held in our old high school gym, a place that once echoed with the sounds of teenage enthusiasm, but now felt hollow and abandoned. As I entered, familiar faces, aged and altered, greeted me with feigned enthusiasm. The atmosphere was thick with nostalgia and unspoken regrets. I wandered through the crowd making awkward small talk, until I noticed someone standing alone in the corner. It was Daniel, an old classmate who had been somewhat of an outcast. He looked different, his once shaggy hair now neatly combed, his posture straightened. There was something unsettling about his intense gaze that lingered a little too long. I approached him, trying to shake off an inexplicable sense of unease. We talked briefly, but our conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion. A scream pierced through the chatter. Rushing towards the source, we found Sarah, another classmate, trembling and pointing towards the women's restroom. "There's someone in there. I saw blood," she stammered. A few of us, led by Daniel, cautiously approached the restroom. The door creaked open to reveal a horrifying scene. Red was splattered everywhere, and in the middle of the chaos lay the lifeless body of a woman I didn't recognize. Panic erupted. The room became a frenzy of terrified screams and frantic calls to 911. The police arrived quickly, cordoning off the area and questioning everyone. The woman was identified as a local, who had no apparent connection to our class. The cause of her death was unclear, but the amount of blood suggested foul play. As the investigation unfolded, it became apparent that the killer was still among us. The gym was locked down, no one allowed to leave. Fear and suspicion poisoned the air, turning old friends into potential enemies. I noticed Daniel standing apart from the crowd, his expression unreadable. Hours passed, filled with whispered accusations and growing hysteria. The police worked methodically, collecting evidence and taking statements. Then they made a chilling discovery: a set of bloody footprints leading away from the crime scene, ending abruptly in the middle of the gym floor. The realization hit us like a tidal wave. The killer had cleaned themselves up and rejoined the reunion. Paranoia reached its peak. People who had once shared classrooms and secrets now looked at each other with distrust and fear. As the night dragged on, a disturbing theory emerged. Some classmates recalled how Daniel had been bullied relentlessly in school, how he had disappeared shortly before graduation under mysterious circumstances. Whispers spread that he had come back for revenge. I watched Daniel closely, trying to discern any sign of guilt, but his face remained an enigma. Then the police announced they had found a bloody shirt hidden in the men's restroom. It was Daniel's size. Before they could apprehend him, Daniel bolted, initiating a chaotic chase through the school. I followed, my heart pounding in my chest. We cornered him in the old science lab. He was trembling, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't do it," he cried. "I just found her like that. I panicked." In that moment, I saw not a killer, but a scared, broken man, haunted by a past that never left him. The police took him away, and the reunion ended in a somber, unsettling silence. Weeks later, the truth came out. Daniel was innocent. The real killer was a local man with a grudge against the unidentified woman. Daniel had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, his past making him an easy target for suspicion. The reunion had started as a nostalgic trip down memory lane, but it ended as a nightmarish descent into fear and paranoia. It revealed the darker side of human nature, where the past can sometimes be a trap, ensnaring the present in its unyielding grasp. It was during a harsh winter in a remote mountain town that I took a temporary job as a caretaker of an old hotel. The place was closed for the season, its owners preferring the warmer climate of the coast. I was alone, tasked with general maintenance and ensuring the pipes didn't freeze. I welcomed the solitude, a break from the chaos of my previous job in the city. The hotel was an imposing structure, built in the early 20th century. Its grandeur had faded with time, leaving behind an air of forgotten elegance. The first few days were uneventful, filled with routine checks and minor repairs. As I settled into my routine, I began to notice odd occurrences. Doors I had left open were found closed. Lights I was certain I had turned off were on again. I attributed these to forgetfulness, the unsettling feeling of being in a large, empty building playing tricks on my mind. One night, as I lay in bed in the small caretaker's apartment within the hotel, I heard a sound that chilled me to the bone, the faint, unmistakable echo of footsteps in the hall outside. I told myself it was just the building settling, but the sound continued, a slow, deliberate pace coming closer, then receding. The next morning, I searched the hotel, finding nothing amiss. Yet the sense of unease stayed with me, a nagging whisper in the back of my mind. The following nights brought more unexplained sounds, soft whispers in the darkness, the creak of floorboards, as if someone, or something, was wandering the halls. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, I decided to set up cameras in the main hallways. If there was an intruder, I would catch them. I reviewed the footage each morning, but it showed nothing. The sounds, however, did not stop. They grew more frequent, more unsettling. Then one evening, the power went out. The hotel was plunged into darkness, the only light coming from my flashlight and the dim glow of the emergency exit signs. As I navigated the shadowy corridors to the basement to check the generators, I felt an overwhelming sensation of being watched. In the basement, the beam of my flashlight fell upon something that made my blood run cold. A door to a room I had never noticed before, slightly ajar. Inside, I found a small makeshift living space, cluttered with food wrappers and old blankets. Someone had been living there, in the bowels of the hotel. I called the police, who arrived and searched the property. They found no one, but the evidence was clear. I hadn't been alone. The intruder had been hiding in the hotel all along, moving through the hidden passages and service corridors that riddled the old building. I couldn't stay after that. The thought of sharing the hotel with a stranger, unseen but ever present, was too much to bear. I left before the winter thawed, haunted by the experience. As I sat in my dimly lit office, the clock ticking monotonously, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over me since morning. Today had been ordinary, uneventful even, yet something felt off. I chalked it up to fatigue and decided to call it a night. Walking to my car, the empty parking lot was bathed in the cold white glow of streetlights. I fumbled for my keys, the sound of my footsteps echoing off the concrete. Suddenly, a sharp metallic click from behind made me freeze. I turned slowly, but there was nothing, just the empty lot. I reached my car and drove home, trying to shake off the lingering anxiety. My house, usually a sanctuary, felt strangely unwelcoming tonight. I double-checked the locks on all the doors and windows, a habit I had developed after a string of burglaries in the neighborhood a few months back. Upstairs, I got ready for bed. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of settling wood. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. That's when I heard it, a faint scraping sound, like metal on wood, coming from downstairs. My heart pounded in my chest. It couldn't be. I had locked everything. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the bed and crept downstairs. The sound grew louder, more deliberate. It was coming from the kitchen. With a trembling hand, I flicked on the light. The kitchen was empty, but the back door, it was ajar. I hadn't left it open. Panic surged through me. Someone had been in the house. I checked every room, every closet, under every bed. Nothing. No one. I called the police, and they arrived within minutes. They found signs of an attempted break-in at the back door, but the intruder had fled before entering. They assured me that everything was secure now, but suggested I stay somewhere else for the night. I couldn't. This was my home. I needed to face my fear. The police left, and I was alone again, the silence now a menacing presence. I couldn't sleep, so I sat in the living room, bat in hand, jumping at every sound. Hours passed. Just as I began to relax, thinking it had been a one-time incident, I heard it again. The faint scraping sound, but this time from the front of the house. I called the police again, my voice barely a whisper. As I waited, paralyzed with fear, the scraping stopped. Then a soft, deliberate tapping on the living room window. I didn't dare move. I couldn't even scream. The police arrived, but again they found no one. They suggested I leave, but I refused. I couldn't let fear drive me from my own home. The rest of the night passed in tense silence. When the sun rose, it felt like a reprieve. But the relief was short-lived. That day, I found a note tucked under my front doormat. It was crudely written with a chilling message. "I'll be back." The police took the note, but they said there wasn't much they could do unless the person acted on their threat. I haven't slept properly since that night. Every sound is a potential danger, every shadow a hiding place. I'm trapped in my own home, a prisoner to an unseen, unknown menace. The waiting is the worst part, not knowing when or if they'll return, but I refuse to leave. This is my home, my sanctuary. I won't let fear win. Even now as I sit here writing this, every creak, every rustle of wind sets my heart racing. I'm always on edge, always watching, waiting. The horror isn't in what happened, it's in what might happen next. Thanks for watching. See you all next time.